Today on The Nation Speaks, doctor-assisted suicide just got easier in California. It also compels doctors to participate, even those who fundamentally object. So they're suing the state, as we learned from plaintiff Dr. Leslee Cochrane and attorney Christy Hirsch. And the disabled community is especially concerned about assisted suicide. Lawrence Carter-Long with the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund explains what the fears are. Then in America Q&A, we ask, should America reassert itself as a global leader or manage decline and let other nations take over? Finally, in our second America Q&A, we ask, what political or social issue have you changed your mind about? And what changed your mind? Hello and welcome to The Nation Speaks. I'm your host, Cindy Drucare. On its surface, the question seems simple enough. Why shouldn't a consenting adult be allowed to decide how and when to die, if death is imminent and living is filled with pain and suffering? It may sound simple, but the moment you crack open that lid, a myriad of ethical, practical, legal, medical, and religious implications fly out of Pandora's box. Physician-assisted suicide is currently legal in 9 U.S. states plus Washington, D.C., and another 14 states are debating it. In California, it's been legal under the End-of-Life Options Act since 2015, but recent changes to that law are being challenged in court. Our guests today are behind that lawsuit. We're joined by Dr. Leslee Cochrane, the Executive Medical Director at Hospice of the Valleys in Southern California. He's one plaintiff, along with the association he's a member of called Christian Medical and Dental Associations, or CMDA. And we have with us legal counsel for the case, Christy Hirsch. She is with Alliance Defending Freedom. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having us.
So the contention in your lawsuit says that under the old law, no physicians were compelled to participate in assisted suicide, but the amendment changes that and some other things. Christy, explain to us how. What are the changes?
Sure. Well, what the state has done is really redefine what it means to participate. And so what they've done is take these ordinary protocols that a doctor might engage in and really corrupted them into life-ending work. So things like diagnosing a terminal illness, providing some sort of medical prognosis, a life expectancy, or documenting a patient's request for assisted suicide, all of these things become part and parcel of the referral that ultimately leads to a patient's death.
And what happens to them if they refuse?
Well, they face all sorts of consequences, up to loss of their license. So they really are here having to decide between abiding by their personal religious convictions and their medical ethics or continuing on in the practice of medicine.
So, Dr. Cochrane, you are a full-time hospice physician, so you're dealing with patients at the end of life all of the time. What are your main concerns? I guess specifically how this will change the dynamic that you have with your patients. Why is this such a big problem for you?
Well, when patients are in a crisis, as you might imagine, when they've been told that they may be facing the end of their life, there's a variety of concerns that are swirling through their mind. And one of the concerns has never been heretofore that I need to be worried that my doctor is going to materially participate in me, ending my life. So doctors like myself take the Hippocratic Oath to uphold life and protect life. And now with the change in the law, the new requirement would be that if a patient, even if I felt that they were in a state, of distress, would be able to require me to document their request for a medication that they would use to end their life and to forward that documentation to another doctor. And so I'm being forced and co-opted into recommending and participating in something that I strongly oppose.
And how did you feel when this law was passed? I know it came into effect in January.
Well, it's a tremendous disservice to patients. And the reason why I say that is the vast majority of patients are concerned that hospice care may seek to hasten their death. They're already concerned, and it's not uncommon for patients to talk about, I wish this could all be over with, but never presuming that that means that the doctor would be participating in them ending their lives. So I've been free to talk to patients very openly and directly about all of the things that we can do to guarantee that we can control their pain and alleviate their suffering. I've never been forced to participate in a patient taking their life, and I won't be able to do that. And this new law is basically placing me in the position of choosing to do the right thing and violating the law.
Consistently, one of the loudest voices opposed to assisted suicide laws are advocates for people with disabilities. For many of us, their concerns might not be immediately obvious, but they are big ones, as we're about to learn. Joining us now is Lawrence Carter Long, Communications Director with the Disability Education and Defense Fund. Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thanks for covering the issue.
Lawrence, why is the disabled community so against assisted suicide laws? What's the connection?
I'll give you an example. Thomas Middleton was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, and he moved into the home of Tammy Sawyer in July of 2008. He died by assisted suicide that same month. 2 days after Thomas Middleton died, Sawyer listed his property for sale and deposited $90,000 into her own account. But even after a federal investigation into real estate fraud in which Sawyer was indicted for first-degree criminal mistreatment and aggravated theft, the Oregon state agency responsible for the assisted suicide law took no action. And in matters like these, literally matters of life and death, one mistake, one oversight, one person who falls through the cracks like Thomas Middleton is one person too many. Because once somebody kills themselves, of course, there's no going back. I can give you more examples. Jeanette Hall of Oregon was diagnosed with cancer in 2000, and she was told she had 6 months to a year to live. She knew about the assisted suicide law and even asked her doctor about it, but he encouraged her not to give up. 11 years later, she wrote, "I am so happy to be alive. If my doctor had believed in assisted suicide, I would be dead." Thankfully, Jeanette is alive and well, happy today, over 20 years later. I think we have to ask how many other Jeanettes are out there that we don't know about because they were pressured or depressed and acted hastily as a result. Sadly, we can't know. This much we do know. Profit motives are real. Barbara Wagner and Randy Stroke, both Oregonians with cancer, were informed by the Oregon Health Plan that the plan wouldn't pay for their chemotherapy, but it would pay for assisted suicide. More recently, disabled people are still being denied life-saving treatments due to things like crisis standards of care because of COVID. I can give you the case of Michael Hickson, who, according to projections from the hospital he was admitted to and killed by, had a 70% chance of survival. But he was removed from life support because of mistaken assumptions by a physician regarding his quality of life. That's real. Right now, dozens of times a year, parents are barely given a slap on the wrist for killing their disabled kids. This is seen as sad and acceptable. That's real. And so are the risks of legalizing physician-assisted suicide to disability communities, especially to those folks who are poor, people of color, isolated and alone, or otherwise marginalized. There are so many things that we just can't know, unintended consequences, unforeseen situations. Jeanette's case is but one of those where if people act sort of in that moment of crisis, in that moment of depression, you don't get a second chance. And I think we have not only a duty, but a responsibility, really, to be particularly careful about being watchdogs and looking out for these situations so that those unintended consequences don't occur, because you can't go back.